The place that this is most powerful is also what I'm talking about. And this is where you step into observer. So you are not knitted into that experience of yourself so much that you begin to recognize who am I being right now? What identity would be having this experience? Like having these thoughts. It really offered an opportunity for me to look at the anxiety and recognize like what is coming up here. And I was having a massive issue about failure. And I had to really sort of work through that because I was having like sort of like a meltdown. And I really had to look at like, what is this response? And from that, and because I was having this emotional, like negative emotional response, of course, I was seeing this show up in my three-dimensional reality. And so as I really started to look at like, why am I having this experience? This is literally like, I don't need this job. I'm just doing this job because I enjoy getting out, but I don't need it. So why am I responding like I need it? Like I'm going to lose it and then I'm a failure. And yeah. And so the power there was to step out of that and really just observe like, oh, like who am I being right now? What is it I'm really believing about myself? And and then challenge this idea. Is it really possible to fail in this job, considering the other things that I do, considering the reason that I'm there? Like, how is it that I've allowed myself to apply this lens of failure? And so this is what I mean when we talk about our persistent identity, because you have so many emotional memories in your life. You will get to a point if you are consistent and about doing sort of that work to clear out some of the heaviest emotional memories that you have. They will no longer create your identity. So I want to take you through an experience to sort of allow you to really sort of, I guess, experience what I'm saying. So imagine so take a moment, and I'm going to use this, I guess, from the context of creating. So for those of you who are creating a relationship, go from that space. From those of you who want to create a stronger relationship or a closer relationship, then I want you to use that. But whatever it is for you, I'm just going to say the one thing, but I want you to kind of move into the space that's right for you. So I'm going to ask you first, move into the experience of manifesting your specific person. So whether that's manifesting connection with them, or whether that is manifesting them to be with you, I want you to move into that experience of that. What is that like? And I know some people pop in and out, and that's fine. But let me know when you kind of have that feeling. Like, just really step into that. How does that feel to be manifesting your specific person, the person you want to be with, or the person you want to be closer to, or the person you want to be connected to? Like, what's that like? How does it feel notice how it feels in your body? And then when you have a good sense of that, I don't know, give me a smiley face or something in the comments. Okay. So once you've really sort of, thank you. Once you've really sort of aligned to what that feels like to be creating that relationship that you want to have, now I want you to kind of like wipe that away. I want you to step in to the experience of your person. They want that. They want to be with you. They want to have that close connection with you. They want to create it. They want it. Not you're creating it. They already want it. And I want you to step into what that experience is with. what that experience is like, to just really know that the person that you are wanting this relationship with, they want to be with you. They want to persist through the hard times with you. They want to understand you. They want to make your life better. I want you to feel that. And then just give me a smiley face in the comments when you feel that. And so I want you to notice how those two are subtly different. Because that, in essence, is a couple of things. First of all, it's a subtle shift in focus, right? So one is focusing on what you're making happen, and one of them is the other subtle shift is that you have it. And so it demonstrates the power of focus and how just like that subtle shift can be really powerful. And so for anyone that hasn't seen it, I did a live on how essentially our focus creates our reality. So whatever our perception is of someone really shifts our experience of them. And for anyone who hasn't seen that, it's in the guides. And I can like put the title in the comments because I don't remember what the title is, but I feel like it's titled "Everyone Is You Pushed Out" on YouTube. But the whole video isn't on YouTube. Yeah, it's the whole video's in the guides. So now that shows you the focus, but I want to take that to identity, because essentially that subtle shift in focus is actually two separate identities. One of them needs to do something. So that first one, they need to create it. So they don't have it. They want it. So that identity is coming from a space of not having it, of lack. And the other one is coming from a space of there's no need to do anything or try anything because I already have it. And I want to be clear, that second one is the one that is the most powerful. So if you can get there and then stay there when you are not getting what you want, you are going to move through what you don't want very quickly and shift into what you do want. That is when they talk about persisting. This is what they mean. Persist from that space. Not persist wanting it, not persist creating it, persist from the identity of already having it. Because the first one is, it's totally a shift in outward focus. Looking around outside of yourself to sort of shift and change something so that you can essentially feel like you have it. And the second one is you already feeling like you have it. And in this moment, yes, having it already. And that is where we create from. A lot of people will sort of ask me questions like, how long do I need to persist, or how long do I need to feel like I have it? But I don't feel like, for the most part, they're really actually feeling like they have it. They're cognitively feeling like they have it, but it's a whole physiological experience. And so if you think about it, the person who has it, or the person who's creating it, that identity, so that version of you, is having completely different thoughts. They're having different emotions. They're looking for different things. They're having different reactions. They're doing different things. And the version of you that has it, if you could use a word to describe that second experience, what word would you say that was? This waiting, the lag, it always kills me because I'm super impatient. Yeah, that's right. Fulfilling. So that's really the difference that between successfully creating something and then sort of always feeling like you're on that hamster wheel. It's a matter of finding that feeling of what it feels like. What does that feel like to know that it's yours? That that person that you're manifesting, they already want you. And then before you say, "Wait, but they don't act like they want me." Well, then you're missing the point. Because then you're not manifesting, then you are essentially looking outside around you. And again, it's that difference. One of them is focused internally. You're focused on having that, on that feeling of, and the two versions are different. They're having different thoughts about themselves. Because in order to see another person and feel like they want what you want, you aren't looking at what they're doing. You're creating by focusing on what's going on internally. And so that's the aspect of identity that I want to talk about, because the persistent identity tends to be the limited identity, the identity that thinks that we have to use force. And so I'm gonna kind of lean on a David Hawkins book here. He has a book, Power versus Force, in which he talks about the difference between when we physically go out and do things. So for example, I always use the example of baking a cake. So if I'm doing these things, then I'm going to get a result. So that's force. Power is essentially when you continually clear that internal space, and that is when things begin to align for you. That is when the inexplicable begins to be manifest itself in your life for no good reason. And so this is essentially where you want to be, and you want to be correcting yourself to come back into that. Now, okay, the caveat to that is when you're struggling we're never going to always be in that space. And anybody tells you that they're probably a practicing monk, and even practicing monks have admitted they're not always in that space. So you have to recognize you're not always going to be in that space, and it's a matter of just stepping back in. When you step out, you step back in. And anybody who, I have heard some, gurus or manifesting teachers say that, I'm always happy and it's always blah, blah. And I don't believe them. I'm sorry, I don't, because that's just not human. But the thing is, you're having this dual experience. So you are essentially this limitless being who is in this human limited experience. And so if I'm really going to take this into far left field, into a really spiritual sort of area, that you are essentially, you are completely fulfilled. You are the all. You have no lack when you come to this life. And you essentially are sort of broken apart to have these beliefs about yourself that you are not enough in some way, or that certain things mean certain things, and you can only have things if they fall within this set of rules. So like the example that I gave at the beginning, I can only be loved by my mother if I'm financially successful, if I have a degree, if I have a good job. And every time I step out of that, I'm feeling, or if I'm doing all the things that a good daughter does, or a good woman, or whatever those actually mean. And I say that because I definitely have faced these things myself. But this is where your power is when you begin to recognize that limited self, all these rules about what you should be, and, so that you're not judged or so that you're loved, are, excuse my language, but a bunch of bullshit. And that we've just accepted. And that is part of coming here to the human experience. And as you begin to challenge each of those, that is where yes, absolutely. And that there is a real freedom in being able to step out of that. And I am not going to say that I am not sometimes pulled right back in, because I will have an emotional memory that will come up, and it will essentially drive me. I will be pushed into a limited version of myself. So I can give you an example. I took for a while, I was just kind of being pent up with all the quarantine was really starting to like mess with my mind. Virtual meetings are great, but there is a point at which I was like, I need to interact with human beings. And so in my one job, we work virtually. In fact, I started a job and I have not met a single person on that I work with. Like, I've never met them face to face. So there's something sort of about that. So I took another job, and I work in a liquor store, and I'm not going to lie, I enjoy it a lot because I get to talk with people. And I mean, it's very short exchanges, but you get to know people and you joke around with them, and it's a lot of fun. But I also started to really take that job seriously. And it was a bit exhausting, sort of having that many things on the go, because I would start work at one job and then I would go to another. And I also still coach. So I was doing all these things, and I was finding that although I really enjoy the liquor store job, because I love that interaction with people, and I don't get it in a lot of other ways. And so it feeds a part of me, but I was really taking it a bit too seriously. And so I started to get like anxiety, even though I hadn't worked there very long. So of course I was making mistakes and I was very tired. And I very much was driven by that idea of like what I needed to do to receive approval from my own mother. And then when I dropped that, things definitely were different for me, because it was like, how stupid is that? As if my mother doesn't love me because I XYZ. Like, I spent a lot of time really always trying to pursue her validation, until I really recognized that I didn't need it, that I already had it, and that it was my own perception that I didn't have it that really was creating a lot of this. And so a lot of the things that we are creating from that kind of limited perspective. And so when you can recognize, I am having this emotional response, because if someone who felt that they were truly loved, they're not going to have the same reaction of someone who fears that they're not. They just aren't. And so that is what I mean by your persistent identity. So if you have a situation and it is constantly triggering you, then I'm asking you to begin to step out of yourself, to recognize the trigger. And some of you will need to do this after it's happened, and that's fine too. I mean, I certainly can be triggered and I make it to the space of calm and then can be introspective. And sometimes I can be triggered and immediately I can become introspective. It really depends on what it is, and is it something new that I've buried deep down for years and years and years? Because I have lots of those ones. And so sometimes something will come up and like I literally see red. But there's a lot of times where what the experience will be is the trigger will come, and because you've practiced becoming introspective, the observer of yourself, and questioning, who am I being right now? What do I have to believe about myself to be having this response? And so when I do that, and because I'm processing out the emotions, I'm no longer swept away by them, because I'm not knitted into that experience. And so I will feel the anger, and it will rise up, and it is literally like heat all up in my chest. And then it runs down my arms and it's out like prickles out my hands. And the energy is gone, and then I'm calm, and I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer triggered. But I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did a lot of internal work, and there were a lot of days of ugly crying. And where I'm not connecting to the story, I'm ugly crying just to release the emotions that I've personally repressed. And that may not be the case for all of you, but I was 100% a 3-decade, coming on 4-decade stuffer and glosser. So I had a lot of stuff I didn't feel. And so if you are actively not feeling things because you are always choosing to just gloss over them, then but you are constantly seeing the same repeated pattern in your life, then that may be something that you want to consider, because that is an aspect of that is essentially an identity that you are carrying, that you are aligning yourself with. That essentially when its experience comes up of being unloved or not considered or not important, you essentially are saying, yes, this is it, because you're not having the same thoughts or even life experience from one identity to another. And so this is sort of, I mean, we all have lots of different identities, as I've said multiple times. So imagine yourself, an example of this is, so imagine yourself, you're in a grocery store and someone behind you starts yelling very aggressively. So when you start, you're probably very calm, you're relaxed. And as they start yelling aggressively, your body tenses, because this is an entirely different version of you. So this is a protective version of you, and you have learned to be this version in those situations from a past emotional experience that you had. And so essentially, I used to be very easily triggered by a lot of things. And so in order to be able to persist through that triggering moment when you don't have what you want and you want to create something new, you need to begin to recognize when your body, when your physical self is out of alignment. So when you're being sort of pushed by your emotions, because often when we have these negative emotions, when this negative identity comes up, it's putting us into a defense mode or a protection mode. And so essentially it is pushing us out of our alignment. It is pushing us out of our limitless self, because if there is, and you know, aside from like, you know, being beaten with a hammer or like being run down by a car, essentially we don't need to be in that protection mode, especially in a situation where especially in a situation where we want someone to show up differently. I think I've told a story about a client of mine. I was discussing this with her, and I was teaching her how to shift energy in the moment. And she was in a conversation with her spouse, and her spouse was quite upset. And her spouse stormed out the door, and she followed that person, and essentially her spouse had something that she needed in their hand. And so she followed them out of the house and was being very calm. And her spouse turned around and was going to throw it at her. And she just put her hand out very calmly, and their reaction changed. And instead of throwing it, they just gently put it in her hand, because that is how we shift that. And again, if you are not practiced with this, I don't suggest you use it. I don't ever suggest you use it when you're about to be run down by a car. And if you're being, you know, in a physical altercation with someone, that's not really the time. It's before. It's before, and practice it. So because we do have that resonant energy. And so this aligns with what I'm talking about with identity, because the identity that needs to be in protection is essentially continuing to manifest that situation where they are in protection or in a defensive position. And the one that does not can then manifest something different. But again, I am not suggesting that you use that in a dangerous situation, particularly if you've never used it before and have no context for it, because yeah, I'm sure you can understand why. Because if you are is the one, I'm not sure I understand that, is the one I am creating. Yeah, I don't think I understand that comment, but essentially, yeah, okay, I think I do. So that it aligns to what I talked about in the beginning. Sorry. Can't even remember my own example. Yeah, essentially now you're trying to do something outside of yourself, and you're doing something. So when you are creating something, and so you're often, when people are manifesting, we are doing all of the stuff. And the stuff is great. I don't say that like I don't do the stuff. But the thing that I see most that trips people up is they're doing the stuff, but they think it's the stuff that does the work. And it's not. It's the stuff is essentially a tool to get you to really align emotionally and energetically with the fact that you essentially are a limitless being. And the more you can use things like being able to essentially, there's a term in neuroscience for doing that, and I can't think of what it is, but essentially managing the energy of a room. That is when you really begin to recognize how limitless you are. I'm currently doing a study with some quantum methods because I have had some really fantastic results, and I want to understand it more. But the point is, it further illustrates to me that we are limitless, and you just have to step out of the construct of your limited self, which always requires an answer. You need to know how it works. And I am not going to say that I am not that girl. And I see I've gone over time. So I'm going to wrap this up right away. But I definitely can fall into that needing to know and needing an answer. But the biggest shift I most recently made was when, even in the face of absolute complete failure and nothing on the horizon to suggest anything but continuous failure, I continued to realign myself with having it. And some of that required me to look around and just ask myself, am I okay in this moment? To step out of that fear of the future. And so, because in that moment, I could feel calm and I could feel fulfilled. Yes, I am okay. I'm really happy in this moment because I choose that. And essentially, the minute I can choose that, I am enacting my free will. Because most of us, we never really actually use our free will. We're pushed along by what we see outside of us. We're pushed along by other people's reactions and actions. And we just kind of let our conditioned response. Well, that person said that to you, so you should be angry, and this is the response you should have. That is not free will. That is not. That's conditioning. So when you're limitless, you are choosing, and some of that requires you to clear the emotional memories that cause you to be constantly tripped up and in the old identity. Because the old identity essentially is, it's like all the unconscious. You are this limitless creature, and your beingness is your power. So in that calm moment, being the one who already has it, you are just being. You are not doing, you are just being. So you can do the affirmations and do all of that, but understand that they work because their goal is to get you in alignment with knowing that you have this limitlessness to yourself. And it is only your limited self that is triggered. And your limited self is in your body. Because essentially, as you begin to process that out, as you begin to apply that observer, who am I being right now? Why am I feeling this way? What is this showing me? Who is this showing me that I am? What are the lessons in this? Am I already being this? There are a lot of questions that you can ask to really begin to provide yourself with the answers. And this is the most powerful tool to step into something. Because as long as I looked at the world outside me and took that as anything more than an example of who I've been in the past, then I am not getting anywhere. I am not finding my answers outside of me. My answers are inside. And because your body is essentially a signaling system, thank you, Agna, for describing it that way, it's telling you who you're being. Are you your limitless self or your limited self? Because your limited self was created as your identity, your little box, small version identity, because you weren't told when you were young, hey, your thoughts create things. And it's not just your thoughts, because essentially if you are being, because your mind will follow your body. But as you begin to clear all those triggers, and as you begin to do some of that introspective work and allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to release it, then that is where your true power is. That is where you begin to be able to step into the life that you want to create. But it definitely requires you to put down the tools of the three-dimensional limited self, because that version has definitions and that version has rules and a lot of like things that are possible and not possible. And so the more you will align yourself with the possibility and that they're essentially that the universe has an inherent magic to it, the more you are going to see that in your life. And that is what I mean about the persistent identity. That identity is not creating, it doesn't need to do the affirmations unless it wants to, because it already has it. The other version is doing all the things, the visualizations and the affirmations. And again, I don't say not do them. I definitely do them, but I do them not to make something happen. I do them to have an experience, maybe to visit a memory that I have of something I haven't had yet. So yeah, that's what I had to say about identity. So I have definitely gone out of overtime again. But I will answer a couple questions if you have some. That hair's driving me crazy. Yeah, I will answer some questions if you have some. And this leg makes me a little crazy, because then I never know if you don't have questions and you're just all sitting quietly. So am I safe to say that you are good to go? You're welcome. I really hope that that was of some value. And yeah, really start utilizing that tool. Like, who am I being? What is this showing me I believe about myself? Because that is really, that's sort of like the keys to your freedom, the keys to all the boxes that you've been conditioned into. Yeah, all right. Well, have a really wonderful Thursday. As I said, I'm not coming back next week, and I'm glad. I'm not coming back next week. I probably will do the next live in the beginning of September. But I will definitely make some videos, because they take a lot less. The live requires planning, as opposed to videos can be a little more off the cuff. So just to accommodate the fact that everybody's busy in the summer, and that I have got a lot of things going on and like to also enjoy the sunshine, because I'm a summer baby for sure. I'm gonna see you in September, and yeah. So have a fabulous Thursday, and till next time.